Well, you see, Ellie, in another recent study conducted in St. Paul's School or Student Library, we saw that most teenagers agree that they would follow the news more carefully if A, they had more time, and B, their parents expected them to do so and accepted their methods of gathering news.
So if parents accepted sources like blogs and podcasts as justifiable news sources, then teens would feel more support in reading and following the news?
I mean, I don't know if support is exactly what I'm thinking about. What I'm thinking about is more towards a reason to follow the news besides being informed of your surroundings. News is pretty much gossip, and gossip that is factual, and everyone loves to talk about gossip, right? So, because kids know that all teenagers follow the same news sources as they do, that gives them a reason or something to talk about at the lunch table. And same with adults, in the workplace. So if adults knew that they were reading the same type of news sources as their kids or their students, they would have, more reasons or to get together with one another and discuss things. And, I think that would give students and teenagers and kids have more reason to follow the news, having an adult to talk to. And who doesn't like small talk? I mean, come on.
Yeah, okay, so you're saying that if adults read media sources like blogs and podcasts, then that could be a topic of discussion between kids and adults.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that could also be good because that dialogue could encourage teens to continue reading and consuming news regardless of how they consumed it, right?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. That could also be beneficial because then that dialogue could encourage teens to continue reading and consuming news regardless of how they consumed it, because that doesn't really matter in the long run. And maybe even get adults to start using the internet as their main news source rather than newspapers, which would help continue that conversation between teens and adults.
Yeah, exactly. So, do you think we will ever reach a point where teens and adults are consuming the same forms of media?
I don't think so. I think that media and the internet and technology is changing so quickly that teenagers are so on the cutting edge of that technology that adults will always just kind of be a step behind. And yeah, there are some adults that are into blogging and new technology, but for the most part, I think the generational gap is just too big, and it's most apparent in regards to media and to, technology, and that transfers over to news consumption. What do you think?
Actually, I disagree. I totally believe that teens and adults are going in the same direction where they're going to share the same media sources. I mean, look at today. Adults are getting Facebooks. Kids are setting their home pages to the New York Times. Sooner or later, these media sources are going to either, combined into one huge media source, or everyone is just going to be reading everything because it's so convenient. Convenience is the key with this.
Yeah, and I don't think it's convenient for adults to make the switch from old-style media and technology and news to the new kinds.
I mean, well, soon enough, the teens are going to become adults, so the switches won't be that huge anymore, or they won't even need to be made. Everyone's going to be working off iPads and BlackBerries.
Yeah, but by then, won't there be something newer and cooler for the teenagers to take interest in? Won't iPads and BlackBerries be outdated like newspapers are now?
I mean, we don't know yet, but I can tell you that this generation of teens is growing up in an ever-evolving world of media and technology. So any new technology that arises, our generation is going to embrace it.
Good point.
Wait a second. Do you think that it's funny that high school students and high schools in general will love making newspapers, and everyone's like, oh, the school newspaper's here, but yet no teenagers will read the newspaper, but they'll read the blogs, but no schools will follow their own blogs?
I never thought of that. There is a Pelican Online here at St. Paul's, and what about the SPS New Media blog? I mean, it's piloted by the coolest teacher on campus.
True, and maybe that's the next big thing, Ellie.
Maybe. But look at this. If the Pelican is so popular, which it is at St. Paul's, I think, Doesn't that show that teenagers really are interested in the news? Because everyone reads the Pelican stories because they're relevant, they're interesting, they deal with the lives of SPS students. So even though we're not reading like the Wall Street Journal or something, we're still showing an interest in news by reading the Pelican.
Yeah, and maybe that indicates that teenagers will read the news when they get older. If they're showing an interest now, hopefully that interest will expand to more than just SPS issues. I mean, like, I know my parents still read it, but whatever. And so, besides SPS issues, we'll have politics and foreign policy and other hard-hitting news.
True. SPS students read the Pelican because the news in it is relevant to our lives, but also because the layout of the Pelican is much more user-friendly than that of the Wall Street Journal or like a New York Times or something. The ratio of like pictures to text, of opinion articles to news articles, color, photos, whatever, they all add to the appeal of the Pelican. But anyway, let's return to our original question. How do we make news more appealing to teenagers?
I mean, I think that what you were just saying is a great example of how we could make news more appealing to teens. If newspapers made their layouts more appealing, more colorful, more fun, and increased their photo to text ratio, perhaps newspapers would seem more approachable and less dense to news-seeking teens. To be honest, I think that teens will read the news if they find things that interest them. For example, in the presidential campaign that took place in the fall of 2008, there was a huge force of teenagers behind Obama. He used mass media and new media outlets to make a clear statement that really appealed to our younger generation. And that was probably one of the keys to his successes.
Great point.
But then there's a problem. How do we generate an interest for all types of news among teens? How do we make the news a more relevant and routine part of life?
Well, I think there are a few things that could be done, mostly in schools. Primarily, I think increasing the number of current events classes that are offered is the most important thing. Also, to include current events in the curriculum of classes that aren't about current events, because many of the things that pop up in news today could be easily connected with history, English, science, language, arts, or pretty much any type of class. Here at St. Paul's, also, we could make newspapers available to all students by having them in the dorms and in the schoolhouse, because right now you can really only read newspapers if you get them delivered here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Great. Well, I think that's all the time we have for right now.
Wait, what? No, I want to keep talking about this. In fact, I think I'm going to go blog about this right now. I have so much to talk and think about, Ellie.
Okay, thanks, Christine. See you later.
Can I get with ya? 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 Why you wanna